bless all of you that's here in Bible study. And thank you for being faithful to Wednesday night. We're going to hold on to it and make sure we're here because it's important, and our kids need our Wednesday nights, and we need it as well. And so God bless all of you for being here. Thank you for being here Sunday. And I enjoyed Brother Holly and getting to hear some old time singing and preaching, and I thought it was wonderful. And I want you to know I pray for you guys all the time. Love this church family, and we're thankful for each and every one of you and your families, and pray that the Lord blesses you, and I believe that He will. Let me find where I need to be. Just a moment. Second Peter, it's near the back. It's a little hard to find because it's a small epistle, just a small book. 2 Peter 1, 5 through 7. Actually, I'm going to read the first few. I gave them something different, so ignore what I gave you earlier. I'm not going to go that direction, so you won't see it on the screen, but you'll just have to trust that I'm telling you the truth. Preach this to you. My key verses will be 5 through 7, but I kind of want to set the scene here. Simon Peter, a servant and an apostle of Jesus Christ, to them that have obtained like precious faith with us through the righteousness of God and our Savior Jesus Christ. Grace and peace be multiplied unto you through the knowledge. I want you to understand what he's saying because it sets the scene for his whole book. Grace and peace be multiplied unto you through the knowledge of God and of Jesus Christ our Lord. So peace and righteousness is going to happen through the knowledge that we have of God and who He is. According to His divine power, has given us all things that pertain unto life and godliness, through the knowledge of Him that has called us to glory and virtue, whereby are given unto us exceeding great and precious promises, that by these you might be partakers of the divine nature, having escaped the corruption that is in the world through lust. And besides this, giving all diligence, this is where I want to point out, add to your faith virtue, and to virtue knowledge, and to knowledge temperance, and to temperance patience, and to patience godliness, and to godliness brotherly kindness, and to brotherly kindness charity. I'm going to stop right there. Thank you, Angie. I appreciate your help today. I wanted to set the scene. I was going to go in a different direction. I've been working on a little message called The Church Has the Keys, and I wanted to talk a little bit about all the areas that God gave the church keys to help us with different areas. But just the last couple of hours, I just felt a little shift that I wanted to go in a different direction. So we'll save that for later. I do believe the church that we have the keys, that the church has the key to our problem through Christ, and so we'll hit that another time. But I've been focusing and kind of thinking for a little while on the fruit of the Spirit, and while this is not the fruit of the Spirit message, and I've been thinking that I would maybe at some point this year kind of dig in on the fruits of the Spirit, because we need those things to be evident in our life, and fruit is very important to God, and in the Bible it was. In fact, there's the one parable where he went to the vineyard there, and the tree was not bearing fruit, and he said, I want you to give it 3 years, and if it's not bearing fruit, then I want you to tear it down and plant something else. And then, you know, there's also the time when he went to the fig tree, at the time when figs should be there. And he goes there, and it's at a season where, actually the season that they shouldn't, he doesn't find them, and he curses the tree, and they go into Jerusalem. And then they come back, and on the way out, the tree's already withered up and died. And it was a supernatural thing that happened. And it's the principle that I created things to be productive and to grow and be healthy. When they're not, something has to happen. And then he talks to us about the fruit of the Spirit. And the principle is, if we really are who we say we are, and if the church is what he says the church is, then it is supposed to be certain things for the world that we're living in. He said the church is supposed to be light, like a city set on the hill. It's supposed to be a light place in a dark place. And it doesn't take much light in a real dark room. Just one little light can change the atmosphere. And he says this is what the church is supposed to be. And when you hear the church, you need to hear you. This is what I am supposed to be. Because the church is not the building. The church is the people. The church is the global church. We meet in buildings and properties and areas, but that's not the church. The church is you and I. So when we say the church is supposed to be like a city set on the hill, that's what my life is supposed to be. My life is supposed to be something that when people are around are looking for something to look at, and something different, something that they can identify that I want to be there, I need to be there, that they will see me and you. Puts a lot of pressure on us because that means we have to be Christians more than just on Sundays and Wednesdays. It said that you had to be salt. That we're like salt. That you are. It said you are the salt of the earth. But if the salt loses its savor, then it's good for nothing. I remember my grandfather preached a message called Salt, and he had a big can of Morton salt, and he started preaching on salt. And he was at a big conference, and he started saying, "I want to know, is there anybody that wants some of this salt?" And they'd come up, and he'd put it in their hand, he'd say, "Put it in your mouth." And they'd grab a whole bunch of salt and put it in their mouth, and just, you could see the response when there's salt there. Salt is powerful, and of course he preached about everything that it was. It's a preserving agent, and it's a disinfectant. It's all these things, and we're supposed to be that for other people. So not just so that we're blessed, but if you look at all these things, salt is for a purpose. Light is for a purpose. And the church is supposed to be. And the fruit of the Spirit, there's a reason that we're supposed to bear the fruit of the Spirit. And it's so that the people will know who we are and whose we are. He said, you will know them by their fruit. You're going to know who my people are. And fruit is really probably best evaluated with how it impacts other people. Some said, I'm sweet. Well, if you're only sweet to yourself, you're not all that sweet. Most of us think we're really good if we were to give ourselves an evaluation. And are you this? Yeah, I'm pretty good. And well, and are you kind? Yeah, I'm pretty good. And are you? But the real question is, how would other people evaluate you? Remember in Bible college, they used to have this little survey, and I always hated that part of it because, none of us knew how to preach and speak, and we had never spoken much publicly. And in our speech class, our first preaching class, they'd have little things, and basically, how did he do? And man, you got some ruthless kids that you go to college with, and that was terrible. That was awful. Went too long. Said all the time. Said all the time. I mean, all these things, just pointing out all the faults. And man, if I was evaluating myself, I thought it was pretty good. But I remember one. I had a crutch when I was young, preacher in college. I guess I said a lot. I was saying and somebody out there said, "No, we don't know." And I just thought, I'm going to kill you after this is over. But it made me realize, okay, I need to quit saying It's easy and there's a reason why we don't. It's good to self-evaluate, but we don't just in the business world, in the work world. We had just this week, this is kind of what brought all this over, we had a message from the ownership team, and it said there's going to be a secret shopper coming in this week. Get everything in order. Clean everything. Make sure it looks perfect. And somehow he had got wind that the secret shopper was coming this week. But the purpose of the secret shopper is to come when you don't expect that they're coming. So, man, this place has looked better than it's looked in years, because we had a secret shopper coming this week, and we were ready this week for the secret shopper. I wonder, are we ready when the secret shopper is really a secret? And if they had come the week before, it would have been all right, but it wouldn't have been what it was when we were ready and knew he was coming. And fruit is not always evaluated when you know it's expected of you, but it's just who you really are. And so this is a little different when the Apostle Peter's talking, but it's very similar to the fruit of the Spirit. He kind of approaches it a little bit differently. So I'm going to hit this tonight first, and then we might dig in on the fruit of the Spirit maybe at some point later in the year, but at least for today, kind of felt like I wanted to dig in on this a little bit. And I wanted you to see how he launches this and how he prefaces it. Now, you know, Peter is one of my favorite New Testament guys, because Peter was kind of volatile. He was brash, and he was quick to speak, and you know, he wasn't one to sit in the back and let other people do it. You know, the Lord looked at some of his disciples and said, "Some of you are going to deny me," and you know, he would have been fine to just stay quiet, but that's not Peter. He said, "I'll never forsake you." And the Lord looked at him and said, 3 times you're going to deny me. And it wasn't long before 3 times it happened. And, you know, they're on a boat and in a storm, and Jesus comes walking by, and someone says, "That's Jesus." And Peter says, "If that's you, bid me to come out there." And he says, "Come." He jumps out of the boat and walks on water for a little while. And then all of a sudden he realized what he got himself into. Have you ever done that? I'll do the class. I'll teach it. I'll start the church. I'll do kids ministries. They don't realize what they get into. They get right in the middle of kids ministries, right? Amber, you know what I'm talking about. I'll do it. And then you're in it, and you start seeing the waves of all that, and you think, I'm sinking. He started looking around at what's going on, and he's going down, and the Lord comes and pulls him up out. That's Peter. Peter's the one that when Malchus comes and with the group to come and arrest Jesus, and he pulls his sword out. Someone said, well, he cut his ear off. Well, I want to tell you, he wasn't aiming for his ear. He was trying to take him out. And he turned just enough where the Lord said, "Peter, you live by the sword, you're going to die by the sword." Picks the ear up and he puts it on Malchus's head. He heals that man for Peter so they couldn't arrest him and take his life for attacking somebody like that. This is Peter. He's that guy. Peter is the same one that when Jesus says, "Whom do men say that?" Some said you're this, some say you're that. "Thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God." He says, "Flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father in heaven has revealed this to you. Thou art Peter, and upon this rock will I build my church." He's the one that gets the revelation of who Jesus is, and he gets the keys to the kingdom. But it's also the one when Jesus says, you know, they're basically telling them what is going to happen. I'm going to die. And he says, "It's never going to happen." And the Lord looks at him and says, "Get thee behind me, Satan." Because he gets out there, and he's right in the middle of it. I mean, you go from one chapter, you're the rock, and in the next chapter, you're the devil. It kind of sounds sometimes like how we are sometimes, isn't it? We're trying to do really good, and sometimes we're really great Christians. And other times, maybe we aren't as great as we'd like to be. But that's Peter. But this is the second epistle of Peter. This is old man Peter. This is, I've lived for God. For this, the Lord has come and gone. He's died on the cross. He's resurrected. Peter has gone through everything Jesus said he would go through. And this is some 70 years later now, and he's writing these epistles, and it's now old man Peter, and he is now a seasoned saint. He's not the young, brash, speak real quick first. Now, he's learned how to live for God. And you know he's learned how to live for God because 70 years later, he's still living for God. And if you want to know how to live for God, find some people with some gray hairs that have been living for God for a few years and watch what they're doing. And there's, look around here. There's as many gray-haired people on a Wednesday night as not. Look at them. Look at their life. And this is gray-haired Peter writing to the church. And he's writing to and he's talking about knowledge and what you have to have. And he said, all things that pertain unto life and godliness through the knowledge of him that's called us. And then he's writing about the basis, but then he says a word here that I think is a good word. He says, you are to be partakers of precious promises, that you might be partakers of his divine nature, having escaped the corruption that is in the world through lust. And beside this, he goes into a list of things, basically, that we are to pursue. He said, if you're going to grow as a Christian, you're going to have to pursue these things. In other words, these things aren't going to chase you down. You have to chase them down. That's what it means to pursue. And I've wondered at times, Lord, how come some Christians don't grow? They're there, but it just seems like they don't grow. Some do, but some don't. Peter is saying that in Christ, you have everything you need to grow. And I want to make sure that I separate the saving grace of salvation from the things that we're going to pursue. Because we're saved by grace through faith. And we didn't do this, and there's nothing we can do to earn salvation more than what he has given us salvation. But once we are saved, and he's not writing to the world. He says, you, through the righteousness of God and our Savior, that you have obtained the like precious faith that we have. He's writing to the Christian people. And he's saying, he's already done the work of salvation. But if you want to grow as a Christian, you're going to have to learn to pursue some things. It's got to be a goal. You have to know what you're after. And if you want to make progress, you have to do it. And then later, he writes, and he starts talking about those that are ineffective and unproductive in their knowledge of Jesus Christ. And he always is pointing it back to it's a lack of knowledge. They just don't understand. They've not pursued these things, and they don't know enough about them to pursue them. And one writer said, Jesus said this, my people perish for lack of knowledge, because they just don't know to do better. And so that's a problem. We have to pursue these things. And in the Bible, and right from the beginning, there's the law of sowing and reaping. And that is a process. If you've ever done 4-H class or gone through any type of agriculture or anything, you learn that planting seeds and harvest is a long distance between the two. And there's preparation before the planting, there's the planting, and then there's the work after the planting, and then there's the reaping, and then there's the work after the reaping. And it's stages of intentional behaviors that allow you to reap a harvest. Sowing and reaping. And it takes time to pursue these things. I came across a statement today, and I've been trying to do this gym journey, and it's going to be a long journey. Sometimes I get very frustrated. I've been going for over 6 months, pretty faithfully, 4 days a week, and I've not seen yet what I thought I would see. If you'd have told me 6 months ago, in 6 months, I'm thinking I'm going to look like, well, let's just say I didn't think I'd still look like this 6 months later. I'm thinking, and I was voicing to kind of starting to get to know some of the guys there, and one of them came up just the other day and said, how's it going? And I said, man, I'm getting a little frustrated. He said, why? I said, because I'm not seeing what I want to see yet. And of course, first thing they do is want to talk about diet. All right, and he makes this statement, Josh will laugh, you know what I'm talking about. He said, well, how's your diet? And I'm like, don't go there. And he said, well, the one thing I learned real early is you cannot work a bad diet. You can work yourself to death. And he's not wrong, because there's a part of me that justified some of the eating patterns, because I feel like, well, I'm working hard, so I'm tired. I can eat this because I'm working, but I'm not losing. But I'm working and I'm eating. And so I got to adjust some things. And then he said something He said, you have to understand working out, and I had never heard this phrase before. He said, you got to stack days. I'm like, what do you mean stack days? He said, When you're changing your life, this is one of the trainers there that kind of works with people like me. He said, you have to stack days. It's not hours. And he said, when I mean days, he said, you got to put months and months and months and months and months of changing your body and who you are and being consistent before you start seeing the result that you feel like. And he said, you'll start. I don't want to get too dig down, but we just spent about 30 minutes talking about, you're going to feel better before you look better and all this stuff. And I'm thinking, I'm a preacher, and you know what? A lot of that rings true, but the thing that I took from that is you got to stack days. When you're pursuing a goal, you can't get discouraged because you didn't see it in a week or a month or 6 months or a year. And the last thing he said is, he said, I want you to look around at some of these older people that are in shape. He said, it's become a lifestyle for them. He said, you're not after a quick fix. You're after a lifestyle change. And I'm thinking, bro, you're preaching tonight. You are preaching. I'm not after a quick fix. I'm after a life change. I'm talking about living for God. I'm after him to change my life. I need my life to be different. I need it to be, and if it's going to be what I want it to be, and if I'm going to be what he has called me to be, I've got to be willing to stack days. That means I got to be faithful in good times and bad times. I got to be faithful when it's cold, when it's hot. You go to the gym when it's super, super cold outside, they're still there. It don't matter. When it's hot, they're still there. I mean, and we won't go, on January 1st, everybody's there. But this February 1st, this not everybody there anymore. I saw them, and Luke said, Dad, I didn't even realize it. I wouldn't even think of what day it was because I'd been doing it. So I just went the first day, and I was like, this place is swamped. And I realized, it's New Year's resolution time. Everybody's decided what they're going to do. And it just slowly, over the last 30 days, you can see it dwindle, 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 dwindle. And I know the last 2 weeks has been the two hardest weeks for me. I've been I thought I got to the point where I wasn't struggling with it anymore. But because when I first started, I'm going somewhere with this. Just bear with me. When I first started, the first 2 weeks was miserable because everything hurt all the time because my body wasn't used to doing this stuff. And, and I'm very intimidated because I see people in there and, the treadmill's like this and I'm flat and I'm out of breath and they're walking like it's not. I'm like, and then you see some, especially there's some people that get on these stair steppers and they'll walk for an hour, and I'm just like, it's like a cyborg. How can you walk on that for an hour? 12 steps and I'm done. But they've been doing it for days and days and days. And then I got to the point where I kind of I like this. I feel good. I feel like I'm making some progress. And I thought I'd gotten past the having to fight my mind about this. But you know what it took? It took 4 or 5 days where I had to miss because my schedule got out of whack. And just the last 2 weeks, I have been right back to square one, struggling to make myself go again and again because I stopped stacking days. When you're in the habit of stacking days and you're doing it, and it's like that with your prayer life, it's like that with your walk with God, it's like that with fasting. When you start getting into it and you're doing it, you think, how in the world did I ever live without this? But you stop for a little while. And it's real easy to get the Cheetos and eat late and stop doing what you're doing because you stop stacking days. And I could not get away from that line when I came here. And what I want to tell you is don't quit stacking days. Every time I come to church on a Wednesday, I'm stacking days. Every Sunday, I'm stacking days. Every time that there's prayer, I'm stacking days. I'm putting my time in. My daughter said something to me because, my oldest daughter, they work out all the time. They go to the gym for 3 hours. I don't know why you would go to the gym for 3 hours, but they go for 3 hours. And I told her, she said, how's your working out? And I said, and every once in a while I have that day where I don't want to be there. And I went. I remember one time I tried to go for an hour and 10 minutes. I went for 20 minutes, and I'm like, all I can see on the treadmill, I see the big, the stop is real big and red. It's a real big button that says stop. And the whole time for all I'm seeing is stop, stop, stop. I'm seeing that button, and it's popped up above everything else. And finally, after 20 minutes, I hit the button. I'm like, I'm out of here. I gotta. And I went and got in my car, and I went home, and I'm like, that was the worst workout ever. I didn't even get to the weight part. And so I got home, and that night, how's your workout go? I said, terrible. I told her what happened. She said, Dad, here's the thing, though. At least you went. at least you made yourself go. And you just, she said, even if it's just a little bit, even if it's just, even if it's just a 30, she said, a bad workout is better than no workout. And I thought, man, how many times do we go to a prayer meeting and we pray and we say, I didn't feel nothing. And we think, I want to tell you, a bad prayer meeting is better than no prayer meeting. And there really is no such thing as a bad prayer meeting. We think it's that because we base it on feelings. But I'm telling you, every time you're stacking days and clocking it down, it matters. And I wanted to encourage you to pursue some things. Don't forget what we're pursuing. I want to make heaven my home. One of these days, and I got to get into, I'm not going to spend a lot of time. I'm going to quickly just hit a couple of things that he tells us to pursue. He said, pursue goodness. Goodness is moral excellence. Be moral. Pursue good. These are things that you have to pursue. Not me. He has saved us. He's forgiven us. He purchased my salvation, placed me in his church, and now he says, you pursue these things now. These are not things that come after you. These are things that you go after. You have to go pursue goodness or moral excellence. You want to be a fruitful Christian? You want to grow? You have to pursue goodness. You have to pursue these things. And so, and when you pursue them, the reflection of that goodness is going to be in our life. People are going to see it in you. You're not going to have to tell them, like we do. Like a guy does if he does one thing around the house. He's going to make sure he tells, did you notice I did this? My wife does everything, but I wash the dishes. Hey, did you see? Did you see what I did? I did a load of laundry. Woo, give him a trophy. Participation trophy. We're gonna point it out. I just want to know what I did for you. I did something, because we're wanting a lot for that. When it's there, you don't have to tell everybody, look how good I am. It's just a reflection. It's just there. It's just who you are. Pursue goodness. And he said, and after that, you mean there's more? Yeah, there's more. And after goodness, knowledge. There's this little thing that goes out there right now, and it says, if you want to be the smartest man in the room, quit scrolling at feeds and shorts and get this app. And it's going to take all of these books and condense them into 10-minute lessons, and you'll know 10 minutes about everything, and you'll be the smartest man in the room. And it's talking about pursue knowledge. And that's just about the way that we want to pursue Christianity. We want to do 10 minutes on grace and 10 minutes on love and 10 minutes on kindness and 10 minutes on suffering and 2 minutes on patience. And if I don't pray for patience. If he's gonna teach it to me, but I'm not praying for it. Lord help me. We want it fast like that. It used to say, go to college and get a degree and become an expert. But it's like, oh, we can shortcut that. Just listen to this 10-minute audiobook and you'll be the smartest man in the room. Unless you're in the wrong room. Pursue goodness. Pursue knowledge. You want to be a fruitful Christian? You need to know what this word says. You need to know how the devil's going to come against you. You need to know, how do I fight the devil? You need to know, what tools do I have to combat the devil? What is it that you need to know? You need to know your adversary. You need to know knowledge. It's not just knowledge of God. It's knowledge of you. It's knowledge of God. It's knowledge that I'm in a spiritual battle. It's knowledge of my enemy. And I have to pursue these things. I've got to learn these things. It's up to you to learn them. And David said, your word's a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. What was the lamp? No, what was the lamp? I just told you. Your word. I got to light my path with your word. I got to be intentional. I got to stack days of knowledge. I asked Pop one time. He was my favorite, my hero. And he preached so good, and I was young, and I thought, I want to be as good as he is. Pop, how long do you study for a message? And I'm thinking, if he says 10 hours, I'm putting 10 hours in this week, and I'm going to be just as good as he is. And he said, about 30 years. And I just thought, oh, God, man, I got to put 30 years in to get where he's at. And what he's saying is Yeah, I study for a message, but I've been stacking days for years. I've been praying for years. I've been reading this word for years. I've been studying for years. I've been researching and preaching for years. And when I've done all that, I know this: you can't pull out what you haven't put in. You can't pray, God, call it to my memory if you've never read it. And some people, they just want about, Lord, open your mouth and give you the words to say. Yeah, it also said, study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman worthy. So you gotta put it in order to pray for God to pull it out. So we have to pursue. The next thing he said is, after you pursue goodness and knowledge, this is tough for all of us, pursue self-control. We all struggle with that. There's times I do. You do. Somebody hit you at the wrong time, the wrong day. I had somebody tap me on the shoulder the other day in line. Said, next time you refer to me, you say, sir. Red. And then later you're like, man, I got to be better than that. Got to be better than that. Self-control. Peter's the most impulsive man in the New Testament out of all of the apostles. And he says, I've learned as old man, Peter, I had to pursue self-control. I had to learn not to say things that I didn't mean. And I had to learn to say the things that I really meant. And he's telling established Christians, you better pursue self-control. It can happen. It can happen to you. I mean, in all walks of life. I'm not going to get bogged down in that. But self-control, it's eating, it's spending, it's praying, it's all that. Pursue self-control. He's given us everything we can need, but we got to pursue these things. He said then, and after self-control, pursue perseverance. You need to learn how to keep pressing on when you feel like giving up. Well, Peter gave up. Young man Peter, when Jesus died, said, I'm done, I'm going back fishing. What does a disciple do when the master's dead? He's gone. I'm done with this. I guess I'm just going to go back to what I knew. He went back to his old life. And Jesus, resurrected Jesus, comes and says, go tell my disciples and Peter that I'm here. And that's what I love about Jesus. He asked Peter 3 times, do you love me? Yeah. Do you love me? Yes. Do you love me? Yes. Why do you ask him 3 times? I kind of feel like it didn't originate with me. I heard a preacher one time preaching. I think it sounded like as good a reason as anything else. He said, the Lord always gives you just as many opportunities to get it right as you did get it wrong. And he denied him 3 times. And so the Lord said, I'm going to give you just as many times to get it right as you messed up when you got it wrong. He denied me 3 times. And after the 3rd time, he said, yeah, you love me. He said, okay, now feed my sheep. Once you've learned how to persevere and not get up, feed my sheep. That's what he's doing in 2 Peter. He's writing a gospel to feed you and I based on his lifetime of experience. And he's telling you, yeah, I know you're saved. See, here's the thing. There's this philosophy out there. I don't even know if I should call it a philosophy or not, but it's almost like cheap gospel and cheap grace. It's like, it's almost, they preach grace to the point where grace almost becomes a disgrace. Grace means anything goes, and you can do whatever you want because we're saved by grace. Well, that's not at all what the Bible teaches. And then they'll really come back. Well, you're not saved by works. No, we're not saved by works, but that didn't say works come after. The Bible never said that there shouldn't be things that follow salvation. How do we get fruit if we don't plant the right things? We are going to reap what we sow. Sowing and reaping, it's going to happen. I can only reap what people that come in and they're new to church and they have that first mess up. What I want to start telling them is just keep stacking days. Just keep coming. You're going to trip. You're going to fall. But you got to get back up and keep going. You have to learn to persevere. You got to learn to live for God when the good time and the bad time. You got to learn to live for God when things are going your way and the things are not going your way. You got to learn to live for God when you're preaching in the churches and when you're in the prison. You have to learn to live for God through everything. You have to choose to rise above discouragement. I talked to a pastor friend today. I love him because he's just so honest. And he said, I felt myself getting down and getting frustrated because, he was dealing with some financial situations. He said, if I let myself focus on finances, I can get into a deep depression. So he said, I just have to just rip myself out of there and tell myself, you're not going there. If you're going to learn to persevere, you're going to learn to preach to yourself. You're going to learn. Nobody can make you do it. You have got to want to do it for yourself. You can't give up easily if you're going to live for God. And then he said, after you pursue perseverance, he said, then pursue godliness. I mean, we can think a lot of things, worship and prayer and praise, but it's a lifestyle. We get all hung up on, don't tell me any rules. I'm not going to tell you rules, but I will talk to you about relationship. And a real relationship brings with it a voluntary set of rules that we abide by because I value the relationship more than the freedom of doing something that would damage the relationship. And when I got married, I said forsaking all others because I love her, not because, and I've often said this, if you were going to meet your future spouse and say, I want a list of all the things that I can get away with and you'll still stay with me. I want to know exactly how far I can go where you won't leave me. But we come to church like that. What's the rules? I want to know everything that I can get away with and still live for God. But when you're really in love, you just want to get close to that person. You learn what they like. You learn, and you sacrifice some things that would damage your relationship because of what you like. And when you realize they like that, I want to be like that. And the Bible said, be holy for I am holy. And if he's holy and I want to get closer to him, then I've got to take on holiness as a part of my life. The Bible said that no man's going to see the Lord without holiness in your life. It's got to be up there somewhere. Well, we're not saved by that. No, but we get close that way. How close are you to Jesus? And how far away are you? Maybe you're not pursuing like we ought to be pursuing. And Peter is an old man. He's saying, you got to pursue. If you want to live for God, you got to pursue some of this stuff. You have to pursue godliness. A life that flows from a passion of living for God rather than the passion to pursue sinful things that would take us farther away from God. And then, this is a difficult one. I'm going to be close. I got two more, and I'll let you go in a few minutes. He said, after you pursue godliness, then pursue brotherly kindness. Now, these aren't fruits of the Spirit, but they kind of are, aren't they? A lot of them fit in fruits of the Spirit categories. Peter says, pursue brotherly kindness, a generous spirit towards other believers. And that's not just talking about giving money. That's talking about being gracious, being kind, being generous with your time. Being generous with your forgiveness. Being generous with your expectation of them, and many times an unrealistic expectation of others when we don't have the same expectation of ourselves. Being generous with who we spend our time with. And if I'm going to make heaven, I've chosen, how can I say this? There's only so much time that we have. We're limited. We get a limited amount, and that's it. And in order to say yes to some things, I have to say no to others. And the reason why so many people don't ever make church a real part of their life, maybe the title, I'm a Christian, is because they've never learned how to say no to enough things so they can say yes to the things that we're living for God. Wednesday nights, I said yes to Wednesday nights years ago. And in order to do that, I said no to some other things. I said yes to Sundays years ago. And in order to do that, I said no to some things. I'm not going to take a job where I work on Sundays. I'm not doing it. I said yes to some things. I know I'm not here indicting anybody else, but I have to choose the path that I feel like is going to get me to heaven. And there's some things that's worth saying no to. So I have to, when I'm choosing brotherly kindness, I'm choosing to forgive. I'm choosing to be kind. And he said, pursue those things. Pursue them when it's difficult, when it's hard. Forgiveness is not needed when it's easy. I don't like apologizing. Well, who does? My favorite thing to do is to go apologize. We all hate apologizing. But the Lord said, pursue brotherly kindness. And then finally, he said, pursue love, compassion. And I don't know. I was sitting here today and got some texts and people out sick and this and that. And I was just thinking about Wednesday night. I was thinking about coming to church and Bible study and being there. And it would be so easy to say, wow, we don't need to do this or we don't need to do that. But would it help us grow to do that? Or would it hinder our growth doing that? And I don't know about you, but there's just some things I'm going to say yes to and things I'm going to say no to. And I have to pursue some of these things. And you don't pursue anything that you haven't really decided this is what I want to do, because it's easy to do it for a day or a week or a month. But when you realize I got to stack days, I got to stack days. Those people didn't get that way in a month or 6 months. Half the months say, how long you been going to the gym? Oh, 12, 13 years. I was like, oh, God. 12, 13 years. I'm still counting days. I'm counting weeks. And they're counting years. And the thing that we need to wake up with is, and Paul says it like this, how sad would it be if I, who have preached to others, and then myself become a castaway? All it would take for us to lose out is to stop pursuing these things. That's all it would take. And you could have spent a lifetime pursuing, but blown it at the end. I want to finish well. I hope it's 50 years down the road, Lord, if I get a vote. But I don't want to live all my life and then blow it in the end. I've lived for God too long to turn back now. I'm not a perfect Christian, but I'm trying to be better. And this is a year that I've just decided I want to be very intentional about what I want to pursue this year. And I want to pursue some things. I want fruit to be in my life. I want people to see me and really see. And it kind of, and I'm gonna close with this. It's an impressive thing that when it said they called them Christians first at, where was it? Antioch. They called them Christians first at Antioch. For they knew that they had been with Jesus. Christian just means Christ-like. So those are the people that's like Jesus. And that's where they called them Christians. Christian is not a denomination. It's a life. It's a life. And I know I'll never be perfect, but I do want my life to be a reflection of Jesus Christ in my life. And I want them to see that more than my carnal spirit that can take control of everything when I'm not pursuing what I need to be pursuing. So I just want to encourage you, don't get weary in well-doing. Keep stacking days. I want to do it because this is how he did it. He said you got to keep stacking days. He was doing that. You got to keep stacking days. Man, it's days, it's weeks, it's years. It's until Jesus comes. It's until he comes. He said, will the Son of Man find faith in the earth when he returns? I hope when he comes back, whenever that is, I hope I'm stacking days. I hope I'm still coming to church on a Wednesday and a Sunday, and I'm still doing what I need to be doing. Because one of these days, it's going to happen that fast. It's over. Done. That trumpet's going to sound, and there's no going back after that. And I want to make heaven my home. I want to know I've been stacking days. I've been stacking weeks. I've been stacking prayer. I've been stacking faithfulness. I've been stacking giving. I've been doing what I need to be doing. Stand with me because I'm going to let you go here in just a moment. I hope this has helped somebody and blessed somebody. I want to encourage you. You may not see it all right off the bat. It's always kind of funny if you got people that, they haven't been living for God very long. They've been kind of living a life according to some different principles and come to church a week and they want to see their whole life turned around. And I tell them, you got to give yourself and God a little time because he can save you in a day, But you've got to outlive that old harvest and start planting seed so you can reap a new harvest. And you got to plant seed. You got to do that by stacking days. And I might have to have a shirt, Josh, stacking days. I'm stacking days. That might be my new thing. That's my new motto this year. What are you doing? I'm stacking days. I'm just one more day, just one more time, one more church, one more prayer meeting, one more message. Lord, we come before you today. I thank you for your word. Thank you for the words of Peter. Thank you for what you're doing in this church. Thank you for everybody that's here. And I pray that you would encourage them, help them, strengthen them, motivate them, Lord, to continue to pursue the things of God, to pursue you and what you would have for us. And Lord, I pray that through their pursuit, that lives would be changed, that their life would be changed, that others' lives would be changed, that their community would be impacted, and that this church would grow and become what you want this church, what you've called this church to be. Let us be fruit-bearing Christians and help us to pursue these things. In your name, Jesus, I pray, careful to give you all the glory. In Jesus' precious name. Everyone said in Jesus' name. Amen. God bless you. You're dismissed. Thank you for being faithful to Bible study and stacking another day.